What is up, Jamily? This is JamiroFan 2000 here. We get another episode of JamiroFan Talks About, where I take a discussionary look at the past, present, and future of Jamiroquai and its now 27 years of music making. In this episode, I thought I'd talk about reissues. Now, we in the past have seen Jamiroquai reissue a lot of albums, or should I say Sony Music reissue a lot of Jamiroquai albums. And we've seen two separate times Sony reissuing the first 3 albums from Jamiroquai, but we haven't seen a lot of reissue, and we did see a reissue of Synkronized on vinyl in the year of 2018, but we haven't seen a lot of reissues of the latter Jamiroquai albums, and specifically I'm talking about Synchronized to Dynamite, and that would be from 2001 to 2006. Now, 2019 it does mark the 20th anniversary of Jamiroquai's 4th album, Synchronized, which was released in 1999, and I've had a few of the members of the Jamily bring up a few discussions on the subreddit and, of course, over on Facebook about when should Jamiroquai be, or should I say Sony Music, be reissuing these later Jamiroquai albums? And I thought I'd record a JamiroFan Talks About to kind of discussionarily flesh that out. Given that we're nearly 20 years into the latter Jamiroquai albums, we're approaching 20 years for the latter Jamiroquai albums, at least in the sense of their time with Sony Music. I do think it's kind of, bearing in mind that Synchronized, of course, was the best mixed and best music-produced album of the discography of the so far 8 albums produced by Jamiroquai between, respectively, Sony Music and Universal Music Virgin EMI. I do think it's kind of a good time to reissue these albums, given that the first of the latter albums is about to hit their 20th anniversary this year in 2019. As for actually a remastering of Synchronized, I don't think that really needs to be done, but I do think an inclusion of some rarely heard demos or sessions would bolster the justification for this reissue, of at least in the case of the album Synchronized. There is a lot of leftover material from this album period, at least in the catalog from Jamiroquai. But of course, this would have to be a reissue that would be spearheaded by Sony Music, given that this is the second half of albums that Jamiroquai had done while they were on Sony Music. I'm sure JamiroQuai Limited, which is of course Jamiroquai's publishing company that JK formed right after they signed with Sony Music back in 1993, would have final say in what is actually released or what they have available that they could retroactively add on to these reissues if they decide to go forward with a bit of a 3-album reissue block for 2019 and into the foreseeable future once these other latter albums hit a 20th anniversary of release. But in the case of Synchronized, they do have a good amount of material they could throw on there, and the most fabled segment of that album era, at least in this case of rarities, would be Midnight Funk, which of course was the what are the songs that Stuart Zender, of course, who left Jamiroquai during this album period, was working on, and of course Jamiroquai ended up scrapping all of the bass work that Stuart did after his departure from the band in 1998 and 99. They ended up going with another bassist for his contributions to that album. But I do think this could be a potential opportunity in this remastering to finally have that lost footage or that lost studio work finally see the light of day on a worthwhile reissue of Synchronized. As for the other 2 albums that could be reissued, of course, A Funk Odyssey and Dynamite. A Funk Odyssey would probably be the more interesting of the 2 because there is a lot of leftover material there that could also see the light of day on a potential reissue or remastering. And then, of course, Dynamite, there was a lot of bonus material, but some of that bonus material did see the light of day on the additional dual disc US release, which was, of course, if you're not familiar with the dual disc and didn't see my previous videos here on the JamiroFan 2000 YouTube channel, the dual disc did have a high-end, high audio version of Dynamite embedded on the dual disc on the CD, at least the DVD portion of that, but that has not seen much as I covered recently on that new Jamiroquai Perspective high-definition music card release, which I still haven't seen any reviews or any more additional information for me to do an update on. But I do think that approach at for Synkronized and a Funk Odyssey as a bonus material, doing like a high-end, high-audio remastering of those 2 other album track lists to be companioned onto that of those potential reissues would also be another big bonus for these remasterings or reissues of these other 2 prospective Jamiroquai albums. And it's a lot, you know, the Synkronized era was a bit of a emotional, volatile time for the band. However Sony Music would approach a reissue of this, would definitely have to have a lot of support, or at least input from JamiroQuai Limited Publishing Company, and of course JK and the outstanding band members. But I do think a Synkronized reissue or remastering would be very, very interesting to see what they're able to yield from JK's recording sessions to add as bonus material for that potential reissue for a 20th anniversary or 25th anniversary release. And same story for Funk Odyssey and Dynamite. But that's pretty much it. I wanted to do a JamiroFan Talks about this topic, given I had seen a bit of a consensual discussion about it on social media. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And if anything related to this topic of this JamiroFan Talks About does see the light of day, sees any press releases or anything, of course, we'll pass it on over on the JamiroQuai subreddit on Reddit, and of course I will pass it on my social media, and of course here on the JamiroFan 2000 YouTube channel I will do a video respectively if any information about this topic comes up. But as always, this is JamiroFan 2000. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to like and subscribe, and as always I will see you again really soon with another JamiroFan Talks About episode and a JamiroQuai Minute episode. I've got a few more episodes coming out very soon, so be sure to keep your eyes on my channel for updates and notifications of that new content and more Jamiroquai related videos here on the JamiroFan 2000 YouTube channel. Bye bye everybody, and have a great day.